this is Jillia. Today we are making a fun, sturdy crochet tote with a window pane design. First, head to Hobby Lobby to get your supplies. You'll need about 660 yards of worsted weight yarn for the main color. I'm using Yarn ID from Yarn Bee and the color Oats. It's an acrylic polyamide blend and has a nice matte finish. For the accent color, I used I Love This yarn, which is an acrylic worsted weight yarn in Fire Red. You need about 450 yards. You'll also need a yarn needle, scissors, and an N/9mm hook. Hobby Lobby is one of the only two places I have found it. To source it online, see the pattern. Before we start, prep your yarn. Form the main color into 3 equal balls at about 220 yards each. I highly recommend not skipping this step. You will be working with 3 strands at a time and this makes it go smoothly. For the accent color, you'll need 3 equal balls of about 150 yards each. I like to use a small kitchen scale to ensure I'm dividing the yarn evenly, but you can shoot high on the amounts and eyeball it. Now that your yarn is prepped, let's begin. Working with 3 strands at a time, start with plenty of slack to reduce tangles and ensure correct tension. Tie a slip knot, insert your hook and chain 34. For even more beginner-friendly instructions, see my Crochet Basics series, which covers this, including working with 3 strands together in more detail. Now that you have chained 34, we're going to crochet around the ends and both sides to create the oval-shaped bottom of our bag. Skip the first 2 chains and work a double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook. To double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through. You should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. Now you have 1 double crochet plus the 2 skip chains, which equals a double crochet. Work 2 more double crochets into the same chain. Normally I would work 5 double crochets at the end of an oval, but we are creating chain spaces which count as a stitch, so chain 1, which counts as the 5th stitch. Work 1 double crochet into the next chain. We'll work 1 stitch per chain until we get to the other end. Work 3 more double crochets for a total of 4 double crochets. To create the next chain space, chain 1, skip 1, and double crochet into the next chain. Repeat this pattern of 4 double crochets, chain 1, skip 1, which creates a chain space, until you get to the end. At the end, you should have 4 double crochets and 2 chains left. Chain 1, skip 1, and then work 4 double crochets into the last chain. With 4 double crochets done in this cluster, chain 1 just like you did to the other end to create the chain space and to complete the 5th stitch of our rounded end. To create our next cluster of 4 double crochets, you will need to work the first double crochet into the bottom of the chain space from the other side. This makes the chain spaces slightly offset at the bottom, but it also makes the math work. Work 3 more double crochets, chain 1, skip 1, and then double crochet into the bottom of the chain space from the other side. Repeat for the rest of the side. As you can see, the chain spaces slant at the bottom, but they will be straight on their respective sides. After the last cluster of 4 double crochets, chain 1, skip 1, and then slip stitch into the top of the skip 2 chains from the beginning. To slip stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through all loops. Normally when working in the round like this, we go in the same direction, round after round. The problem is it pushes the stitches in the seam at a diagonal. Because we want the chain spaces to stay straight, we will need to turn the direction we work in with each round. So turn, chain 2, which equals a double crochet stitch. Now because we've turned, we're facing a chain space already, so chain 1 more for a total of 3 chains. Then work a double crochet into the next. The 3 chains from the beginning should have formed a square shape. Work 3 more double crochets, then chain and skip over the chain space. Repeat, following the pattern set by the previous round for the rest of this side. When you get to the first curve, you worked 4 double crochets, chain 1, skip the chain space, but you also need to work a double crochet into it. At the rounded ends, we increase by working 2 stitches in each, so 5 stitches will become 10. Working into these chain spaces always makes you work for it a bit. Work 2 double crochets into the next stitch. So for this cluster, we're at 3 double crochets so far. We need 1 more into the next. With 4 double crochets done, we're ready for a chain space, but we need to make a new one. So chain 1, which counts as the 2nd stitch, then work 2 double crochets into the next 2 stitches. This gives us another cluster of 4 double crochets. Now we're right back in line with the chain space from the previous round. Chain 1, skip the chain space, then continue working clusters of 4 double crochets, chain 1, skip the chain space to the other end. We'll work the second end similarly to the first end. You have 4 double crochets, chain 1 over the chain space, then work a double crochet into it. Then work 2 double crochets together into the next stitch, work 1 double crochet into the next, chain 1 to create a new chain space, and then work 2 double crochets into the next. Now notice for the last stitch, you have already worked into it with 2 chains, which equals 1 double crochet, so work 1 more double crochet into the base of the starting chain 2. Then complete the round with a slip stitch, right? Well, let me explain. For every 2 rounds of double crochet in the main color, we're going to work 1 round of single crochet with the accent color. To change colors, you actually want to start with the last stitch from the previous round. So take that slip stitch out, move the working yarn from the main color to the back, insert your hook as if you're going to slip stitch, Then lay the accent yarn over the hook and pull it through both loops to complete the slip stitch. It always takes a bit of a dance to pull on the main yarn and the new accent yarn to make sure everything is pulled tight and in place. Now we've been working in this direction, so let's flip to turn the other way. Chain 1, which doesn't count for anything yet. I use this first chain to make sure the new color is securely in place. Now work a single crochet at the base of the chain you just worked. To single crochet, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through. You should have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. This gives the start of the round a cleaner look than just starting with a chain. Then follow the pattern from the previous round, except instead of double crochet, you'll single crochet 4, chain 1, skip the chain space, etc. There's no more increasing, so it's a straightforward 4 stitches for every chain space. This also makes the bag bottom start to curve up. At the end of the round, you should have 4 single crochet, chain 1, skip the chain space, and now we're ready to change colors at the slip stitch. Normally we insert the hook from the front, but for these accent rows only, insert the hook from the back to make it easier to grab the main color yarn. Drop the accent color, yarn over, and pull the main color through both loops to complete the slip stitch. I like to give all the tails and working yarn a tug to make sure it's secure. No need to work an extra change since we left the main color attached. Cut the accent color, leaving a 3-inch tail. There is unfortunately no clean way to carry it through to future rounds. Now turn, chain 2, and assess. You're at a chain space again, so chain 1 more and skip the chain space, then work 4 double crochets. Repeat the pattern of 4 double crochets to 1 chain space for the rest of the round. When you get to the end, you should have room for just 3 double crochets because the 2 chains at the beginning will be your 4th double crochet in this cluster. Slip stitch to the top of the chain 2 as normal. Turn, chain 2, then work 3 more double crochets in this cluster and repeat the pattern of 4 to 1 that you've been working in previous rounds. You've worked 2 rounds of the main color, so switch colors at this slip stitch as you did before. Chain 1 to secure the accent yarn in place, turn, work a single crochet in the same space, and now you're at a chain space. So chain 1, skip the chain space, and continue the pattern of 4 single crochet to 1 chain space for the rest of the round. At the end of the round, work 3 single crochet to complete the cluster. You can let the previous rounds guide you on how to begin and finish each round, or follow the written pattern on my site. To switch back to the main color, insert your hook from behind, drop the accent color, yarn over with the main color, and pull through both loops. Turn, cut the accent color, leaving a 3-inch tail, then continue the pattern as you have been, working 2 rounds of the main color for every 1 round of accent color until you have done this 7 times. Now we're going to start building up the top sides of the bag. This is a sneak peek into the future of what it will look like. Because the top sides will start off at different points, tie off the main color before adding 1 more round of accent yarn all the way around. Count 3 clusters in from each side of the bag. We will begin one side at the inside of one of those 3 clusters, using the main color slip stitch into the first stitch in the cluster. Then chain 2 and continue the pattern of 4 double crochets to 1 chain space as you have been doing for a total of 6 clusters. Now turn, chain 2, and repeat the pattern for the second row of the main color. At the end of the row, take care not to miss the last stitch, which is the top of the chain 2 from the previous row. Work your double crochet as normal, but when you get to the last yarn over, don't pull through the last 2 loops. Switch to the accent color, then pull through to complete the double crochet. Turn and work a row of single crochet in the accent color. When you start the last single crochet, drop the accent color, then yarn over with the main color and complete the single crochet. Work 1 chain to secure the yarn in place, then turn and chain 2 to begin the next row. Work 2 more rows of the main color, then tie off your end and repeat the process for the other side. Now we will use the accent color around the top of the bag to create the handles. Tie a slip knot and insert your hook into a stitch at the side of the bag, yarn over and pull through. Instead of working a slip stitch, you already have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through to complete what is called a standing single crochet, then single crochet into each stitch, including the chain spaces until you get to the end of the row. Now chain 35 to form a handle and to bridge the gap between the sides, attach the chain to the other side the same way you began the round with a standing single crochet. Then single crochet around to the other side and repeat for the second handle. Note, when attaching one of the handles, you'll run into a chain 2 instead of a double crochet. Be sure to work into the top of the chain 2 and not skip over the double crochet next to it to keep your stitch count correct. Slip stitch to the first single crochet to complete the round, chain 1, which counts as a single crochet this time, and single crochet around in the same direction, no need to turn. When you get to a handle, single crochet around it 35 times. Shift the stitches around as needed to ensure they evenly cover the handle, then resume single crocheting around the top of the bag and repeat for the other handle. Slip stitch to the chain 1 from the start of the round and tie off your end. Now we're ready for surface crochet. We'll be slip stitching through all the chain spaces starting with the sides and bottom of the bag. Tie a slip knot with the accent color and slip stitch into the top rows above a row of chain spaces on one side. Give yourself plenty of slack because it's important to work loosely for this step. Insert your hook under the first stitch in the chain space, yarn over, pull through, and then keep pulling through the loop already on your hook. Then continue slip stitching into each space in the row. There are no chain spaces for this horizontal line at the bottom, so you have to use your best judgment to get across. It can be especially tempting to work tightly here. Remember to keep it loose. Now turn and work up the other side of the bag, then slip stitch into the first row of single crochet at the top and tie off. Continue surface crocheting through each line of chain spaces, starting on one side, working through the bottom, and then up to the other side. You can work all surface crochet lines in one direction or alternate them. I chose the latter. At any time, if you're unsure where to work next, notice where the yarn is coming out. That is from a stitch just worked. So you want to work in the next one. Make sure the working yarn is above the hook each time. This will keep things looking uniform. Even though some are spaced far apart and some close together, work in each skip chain space. If you work loosely, it will look even in the end. Repeat with each line of chain spaces. Now for probably the longest part of this project, weave in all the ends. It does have a purpose though. I use the ends to clean up any seams or loose spots. Thread a yarn needle onto each strand and weave it into its same color, making sure it looks good from both sides. Weave in at least a couple inches and trim off the excess. All done! You can leave the surface crochet side out for a bolder textured look or turn it inside out for a smoother finish. For more tutorials and free patterns, visit DeliaCreates.com.